always the last subject that will become clear to us in our study, in our demonstration, will be the subject of grace. Because now you will begin to perceive that we are living by grace rather than by effort. Healings are really brought about by grace. That means they are brought about not by anything that a human being knows or can do. I mean spiritual healing. Healings are not brought about by anything that a human being can do or can know. It is brought about by the degree that a human being knows they can do nothing and can be still and let this grace perform its function in our experience. Now it is the same way that our good appears to come to us through persons, circumstances, conditions. And of course, that is what all materiality is based on. That you must get, you must attain, you must achieve, and always it is through some personal effort of your own. Usually, in accomplishing that, what we attain is at somebody else's expense. And it is for this reason that we have world turmoil. If a firm does not pay sufficient wages to its help, then it gets its profits, its volume of business, its success at the expense of the help. On the other hand, if the help does not give the amount of work, the amount of activity, the amount of intelligence that the job calls for, then whatever degree of benefit they seem to get by withholding is at the expense of the firm or the product. In the same way, when firms go on strike because of an unwillingness to pay adequate wages, whether they win or lose, somebody loses. When employees go on strike, more especially if they go on strike for that which is not rightful, if they win or lose, it's at somebody's expense. So in the material picture, you are always gaining at somebody else's expense, or nearly always. And that is why often our gaining leaves other people resentful. Now, in the spiritual picture, this is not true. In the spiritual picture, your gain does not come from another. It may come through them, but not from them. Your gain comes from the spirit within. And the way you have assured that is that you have not looked outside of your own being, but you have looked to the power of grace to bring forth that which is your need, your supply, your fulfillment of the moment. Now, this does not mean that in the outer picture we do not live our normal, natural lives. It only means that inwardly we are realizing our good as coming from grace rather than coming from outer effort or from person, thing, or condition. It is much the same as this. If you were sitting down answering a call for help, there would be no use of turning to someone else for that help, even if you knew another practitioner that you could call on. That would still not benefit you. Your only benefit would come if you sat in the silence and let grace, the power of spirit or grace, reveal to you this harmony, this healing. Well, healing, supply, companionship, home, human relationships, these are just as much a product of grace as the healing of a mind or of a body. And so it is that we learn, not waiting until we have a need, but in our praying without ceasing, we learn to go within. The kingdom of God is within me. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. The kingdom of allness is within me. I and my Father are one. Therefore all that the Father hath, I have in that oneness. And it is all established within my own being. It is through the grace of God that I am heir of God. It is because of my relationship to God, heir of God, joint heir. It is not by any power of my strength or wisdom. It is not because of my cleverness, nor is it even because I deserve it. No, it is because of my relationship to God. It is because of my oneness with the Father. It is because as the child of God, I am heir of God. Infinity abides within me. Infinity, eternality, immortality, all that the Father hath is mine. Whither shall I flee from thy Spirit? If I mount up to heaven, thou art there, and if I go down to hell, thou art there, and if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, thou art there. And in thy presence is fullness of life. In thy presence is fullness of life. In thy presence is fullness of life, fullness of joy, fullness of being, fulfillment. In thy presence is fulfillment. I do not put my trust in princes. I do not seek what another has. Son, all that I have is thine. The kingdom of I is within my own being, and all that I have is mine. Son, thou art ever with me. This breaks down all sense of separation. Son, thou art ever with me. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. God is the source of my being and of my good. Here where I am, God is, up in heaven or down in hell or in the valley of the shadow of death. Where I am, God is. where that may be geographically. Makes no difference. Where I am, God is. Where God is fulfillment, completeness, perfection. It is because of this that I can feed the multitudes or heal the multitudes. It is because of this that I can share, give, bestow. It is because the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me that I am ordained to heal the sick. It is because my consciousness is God-filled that it is a benediction. Do you see that I do not have to look to another for benediction? Do you see that I do not have to look to another for supply, for companionship? Do you see that I do not have to look outside of my own being? I and the Father are one. Son, thou art ever with me. All that I have is thine. Here where thou art, I am. Where I am, thou art, because we are one. There is not even a shadow between us, for we are one. And in the realization of that oneness is fulfillment. Therefore, it is said that thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Thy grace, the grace of God, not man whose breath is in his nostril, not even princes. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Thy grace. Do I have to earn thy grace or deserve thy grace? No. Thy grace is a matter of relationship. Because I am one with God, the grace of God is upon me. It is even a presence that goes before me. It prepares the way for me. How shall we speak of grace? It has been called the gift of God. But God has only one gift. And this I bring to you, that God's only gift to us is himself. Do not think of God as sending you supply or companionship or home. Do not think of God in such a way as even to desire these things of God, for you will block your spiritual progress. One thing alone God can give you: the Spirit of God, the presence of God. And when you are in the presence of God, you are in the presence of fulfillment. God gives us the gift of himself. And God is the only gift, therefore do not ask God for any form of demonstration except the gift of himself. For where he is, fulfillment is. The fullness of life is. Therefore we have no need but to know him aright. To know him aright is life eternal. To know him aright. To understand that his grace is our sufficiency. Let us stop for a minute. Now, do you see that as you sit here this way and dwell, ponder this subject of omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience, the subject of grace, do you not see that there develops within you a sense of independence from the thoughts and the things of this world? You can feel within yourself a sense of self-completeness because of your oneness with God. You can really begin to feel that if there weren't a person in your life to bring anything to you, that nevertheless, by morning, everything needful would be there, and by noon and by night, and that day by day this manna would fall. You gain that inner conviction through this contemplation of God's allness, God's presence, God's love, God's grace. It almost sets you off separate and apart from the world, as if you could live permanently in this sense of self-completeness in God. And this really is the ultimate of spiritual living. In the end, everyone on the spiritual path, or at least the goal of everyone on the spiritual path, is the attainment of this realization of self-completeness in God. This realization that I am self-sufficient, not of myself, but because of my relationship to God. Because God's presence is fulfillment. Because God's presence is freedom from care, concern, worry, fear, lack, limitation. It is in moments like this that you can understand that God is your father, mother, and that God is your husband. God is your provider. God is your companion. God is really the head of your household, in complete charge of every activity of your existence, really a power to be leaned upon, a resting place. You can even, the men can even feel that it is true that God is mother and God is wife, for there is a tenderness within. There is a tenderness, a comfort, a caring. And it's not of myself. It is of the presence. It is this divine grace that provides for every avenue of our so-called human existence. The ultimate object of our meditation is the feeling of this presence, our ability to commune with it, and to realize oneness with it. When we have attained this, we have attained the goal of life. And there is no higher goal. There is no higher goal attainable on earth than an inner communion with the Spirit of God. The realization that this presence never leaves us, nor forsakes us. It does not send us food or clothing or housing. It is food and clothing and housing. It does not lead us to a fortress or a high tower. It is literally fortress and high tower. It is. There is no sending of anything. There is no giving of anything except the giving of itself. And we on the spiritual path must learn this lesson. We are seeking only God. But God is closer than breathing and nearer than hands and feet. Therefore, really, we are seeking realization of God's presence. For God is present where I am. And only this centuries-old sense of separation keeps us from this inner communion, this living the withinness. Have I been so long with time with you and thou hast not learned? Thou seest me. Thou seest the Father that sent me, for I and the Father are one. The kingdom of God is within me. Have you been studying truth so long and have not discovered that that which you are seeking, you already are? It is the already truth about you, hidden because you have looked outside for something. You have looked to man whose breath is in his nostril, or you have looked to princes. Your faith or your confidence has been in the external realm. And you have not developed this conscious awareness of a very gentle presence within you, a presence within you that becomes manna. It becomes water from a rock. It becomes the power that opens the Red Sea. It doesn't send these, it is these. When you watch growing things, flowers, fruits, you are watching the grace of God in action. You can't see it because it's invisible, but it appears visibly as fruitage. That is why the Master could say that if you abide in this Word and let this Word abide in you, you will bear fruit richly, because the power of grace will be functioning. And your fruitage comes into your experience not because you earn it or deserve it or are worthy of it. It is because you have learned to relax and rest in the grace of God and rely on the grace of God and have confidence in the grace of God until the day when you experience it, when you actually experience this inner presence. This is the way of silence. This is the way of living not by might, nor by power, but by the grace of God. This is the way in which there is no room for desire. If a need appears, retire within. Tabernacle with this presence. In its due time, this presence will appear outwardly as the very form necessary to your experience. If you are called upon for healing, the truth is already established within you. Tabernacle within. God's grace will give you a message if you need it, confidence, assurance, promise, whatever it is that is necessary at that moment. Hold it a minute. Of those that have, much is expected. And it is to those of us who have some tiny measure of spiritual light that a great deal is expected to be poured back into this world. You must not look upon yourselves as those who are seeking something through truth. Those days are behind you. To believe that you must get something through truth is to acknowledge a lack, a vacuum, an absence. And that's what you'll demonstrate. In the spiritual life, you acknowledge that all that the Father hath is mine, and I can begin to pour. Therefore, the depth and the degree of your demonstration will be proportionate to the depth and the degree of your understanding of the infinite nature of your own being and of your willingness to begin to pour out. And the greatest pouring, of course, comes through your contemplation, your meditation, your tabernacling with the Spirit, making way for the imprisoned splendor to escape. Ye are the light of the world. But this becomes demonstrably true only in proportion as you accept it, and accept the fact that you are that place where God shines through, and you demonstrate this in your givingness. And the greatest thing you have to give is your period of meditation, contemplation, communion. Hold it. Now, do not expect God to give you health or supply or home or companionship, for now those days are behind you. You will understand now that God's grace is made manifest through God's giving of himself to us, and letting that take form in accord with its own will. This is the tenor of everything that is pouring through here tonight, that our day is behind us for believing that there is God and some form of good, when there is only God appearing as infinite forms of good, but nevertheless always God. God the source appears as God the effect, even though that effect may seem to be water pouring through a rock. It may appear to be manna falling from the sky. It may appear to be a power opening the waves, but it isn't. It is God's presence itself. That is why where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. In thy presence is fullness, fullness of God, infinity. This is it. God declaring itself, God revealing itself as itself, God the Father revealing itself as God the Son. Not two separate things, one to be reestablished, one to be improved, one to be healed, one to be enriched. No. God the Father is God the Son. And in that oneness is the demonstration of harmony, peace, order, joy. That is why God's grace is our sufficiency. God's selfhood is our sufficiency. God's love is our sufficiency. God's presence is our sufficiency. Acquaint now thyself with him and be at peace. Where shall we meet him to be acquainted with him but in the kingdom of God within ourselves? These are the sacred moments of life, these moments of meditation. The rest of the day and the rest of the night, these are only outer expressions of these moments of communion. How love I thy law. Go within, the Master says. Close the door of your sanctuary and be in there with the Father. And then we hear, I will never leave thee. Aye. Yes. When you are in meditation, as we are tonight, whether you are alone or with others, do not be concerned at any absence of words or thoughts. It is only when teaching, when imparting, that it is necessary for these words to be spoken. But for ourselves, it will be necessary only to abide here in this stillness. And our lessons would reveal themselves to all of us, even without the benefit of words or of thoughts. That is why tonight I'm taking advantage of the fact that we are having this extra period to have as much of this silent meditation as possible. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. An advanced student is one who realizes the goal of the infinite way, and who through self-discipline is daily striving to attain that goal. The goal of all spiritual living is attaining freedom. And this means not a freedom from something, because that would lead inevitably to an attachment to something else, but rather a spiritual freedom, which is neither a freedom from anything or from anyone. To be free from one circumstance and thereby attached to another is not freedom. To be freed from egotism, conceit, self-glory, and to be attached to something called spirituality, humility, purity, is merely to give up one form of error for another, to give up one quality of humanhood for another. Let us start with the word humility, since this is one of the most important factors in the spiritual life. What do we mean by humility? In the infinite way, we mean the realization that I, Joel, am no more good than I am evil. That I, Joel, have no more spiritual powers than I have mental or physical powers. That I, Joel, am no more generous than I am stingy. I am no more moral than I am unmoral or immoral. In other words, I, Joel, have no qualities of myself. Whatever there is of good which flows out seemingly from me is actually the presence of God itself flowing through me. Any erroneous qualities or traits which are still evident in the life of Joel is certainly not Joel, for Joel knows better. It is only in the degree that personal sense has not been completely dissolved. True humility neither accepts praise or the belief of power, nor does it accept the opposite. Perhaps you will understand this better if I say to you that it is a shocking thing to me when I receive letters from students saying that they feel more spiritual, or that they would like to feel more spiritual, or that they have made great progress in spiritual growth, or that they would like to make greater progress in spiritual growth. For all of this is based on the opposite of humility, on inflating the ego or deflating the ego with the idea of later having it inflated. It is an impossibility for a spiritually developed person to feel spiritual, just as it is impossible for a man or woman of moral integrity to feel I am moral, or for a person of highly developed integrity to have the feeling I am honest. No, no. Humility is the realization that I am neither good nor evil, that I am neither spiritual nor unspiritual. Why callest thou me good? There is but one good, the Father in heaven. On the other hand, neither do I condemn thee. Neither do I judge thee. Why? Because that I has no right to sit in judgment or to define what is right and what is wrong. That I, which is Joel, is only right when it sits in silence to let the Spirit of God bear witness with our spirits. This does not prevent us from praising those who are doing well, and if the right occasion presents itself, even to point out where they may be, consciously or unconsciously, not doing well.
In other words, freedom does not mean a detachment from person or thing. It does not mean a denial of the physical realm or the human self. It means a detachment from these as in the form of dependency. Let us see how that works. For this experience can only come to those who are advanced on the spiritual path. To be detached and to be spiritually free does not mean that I deny my body, for that would be asceticism. And everyone who has ever tried asceticism has failed. But in the realization of my true identity, and in taking no thought for the body automatically becomes an instrument through which I function in my daily experience. To be detached from worldliness does not mean that I have lost interest in you. On the contrary, it has enhanced my interest in the people of the world. It has merely detached me from undue reliance upon anyone, and set me free to tabernacle with God. And in the degree of my ability to tabernacle with God, do I enjoy more and more my relationships with the people of this world. But do you not see that in my relationships with you, with the mystics whom I meet around the world, or even the politicians whom I meet in planes and hotels, or businessmen or professional men, that my interest in them is enhanced because of my very freedom. Certainly I do not have the feeling that I am my brother's keeper, in the sense that I must proselyte and force upon him a state of consciousness to which he has not yet grown. Nor does it mean that I must interfere in his personal life or personal affairs beyond the extent for which he may have asked help. But I enjoy my association with the people of the world, and of learning the states and stages of consciousness that constitute this world, and of sharing on many different levels of consciousness the joys of companionship. And yet I am free and could live my life alone if occasion demanded it. Being free spiritually, being unattached, does not lessen our obligations to our families, to our communities, to our governments. Oh no. No, that would be becoming attached to non-attachment, that would be equivalent to putting our head in the sand and saying, there is nothing to be seen and no one to see me. Ah, no, I do not pray that you be taken from the world, says the Master, but that you remain in the world, but not of it. Is it not possible to feed a hungry man without coming down from your high state of consciousness, in which you realize the infinite nature of God's abundance? Why, by feeding the hungry man, you are testifying to the fact that you can share with him of your demonstration. To feel charitable or benevolent about this would be a sin, for this would be ascribing qualities of good to you, which qualities you do not possess. To be spiritually free compels one to act with justice, benevolence, graciousness to all whom we contact in the world, but not to ignore them. The height, then, of our work is humility. A humility which takes from us any sensation of personal goodness, personal power, personal virtue, personal benevolence, personal spirituality, and leaves us as we really are, a beautiful instrument through which God's grace pours itself to this world. As long as we have a sense of being alive, we are entertaining some sense of death. If we have a sense of being rich, it is only because at the same time we have within ourselves some sense of lack. If we have a sense of being good, it is only because we are entertaining the opposite sense of evil. And if we ever have a feeling of being spiritual, be assured you have missed the way, for it means you are entertaining a sense of what unspirituality is. True being, the being which I am, has no sensation of being anything, of doing anything, of causing anything. It is just what it says it is, being, capital B-E-I-N-G, being, with no qualities, with no limits. It has no sense of age. It has no sense of change. It has only the awareness of being what I am, always without qualities, and without quantities, and without time, and without space. In this high vision, which is the goal of the infinite way, the form itself is unimportant, although it is not to be discarded. But it is unimportant because in this fourth dimension of life, I am equally I, regardless of the form as which I appear at any given moment. I am equally I, and I am equally you, and I am equally he, she, or it. For I am not form, but I am the life which pervades all form, and I am as much life appearing as one form as another form. And that is why I existed before my birth. And what the particular form may have been is of no importance unless it is actually revealed to me for a purpose. In the same manner, what my form will appear as after I leave this human scene is of no importance, for I will still be I will still be conscious, I will be consciousness itself, and at a progressively higher level, yet without any awareness of progressing. In other words, I cannot remember the Joel of early 1928, what he felt or what he experienced, and I certainly cannot understand the things he thought or did. But the I which I now am knows nothing of progression. It merely knows itself as it is now. But it also sees itself as an infinite variety of form. Our goal, true humility or detachment, relieves us of the burden of any sensation of self as being good or bad, rich or poor, white or black, and leaves us in the atmosphere of divine being. And so ponder these things deeply. Aloha.